Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. We have been tracking the Penn State head coach search really for the last month and a half. And you could have given me 100 guesses in terms of who Penn State was going to go with. Kalani Sitake from BYU, I don't think I would have gotten. Now, look, this is a really good football coach, and I could certainly sell you on Kalani Sitake coming to Penn State. It just seems like a really weird fit. And I want to explore the pros of this potential hire. I want to talk about the potential cons as well. Though we got one more candidate who we've talked about that seems to be lingering on in this conversation. I'll say hand up. Y'all know how I feel about that kid, Jeff Brohm. I shouldn't call him a kid, Jeff Brohm. I love Jeff Brohm. Would love to see him at Penn State. Not sure if it's going to happen, but we'll talk about that too. Before we get into it, as always, I need this so bad. Penn State fans, let it fly. I'm not even sure really what to think. I got to hear from the Penn State fans. Appreciate you guys. The amount of support from the Penn State fans over the last month and a half been amazing. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Until I can promise one thing. The Kalani Sitake era at Penn State, going to be really fun to talk about if it happens. I'm going to give you the T-box. Kalani Sitake potentially coming to Penn State. How are we feeling about it?
And I get you saying it's a weird fit. It definitely does feel like a weird one. A guy who spent basically every waking moment on the West Coast felt like he was honestly going to be a BYU lifer, I should say, like alma mater, like that. He felt like BYU right to the core. I'm a little surprised, frankly, that Penn State's even in the game for him and that he's considering leaving. But I will say this: as much
wait. Are you confused why Kalani Sitake would come to Penn State?
I guess that's true. Penn State's. I don't mean to say like Penn State's not a better job than BYU. Penn State's a better job than BYU. It just felt like Kalani Sitake's been there for so long. I'd have to think he's had other opportunities because he's had a really good run.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go back and look at his record, really consistently winning kind of that 9 to 11 games. I mean, that's really impressive for a BYU school that, again, good football program. Not like I think like dominant blue blood football program, obviously, and he's one really.
I have a comment that this is like one of the first things that came to my mind is that in a weird way, even if Kalani Sitake does not excite you as a Penn State fan, this situation should. And what I mean by that is what you just said. Kind of surprised Kalani Sitake is interested in other jobs, like seem like a BYU lifer. Well, what does that tell me, Dill? It tells me Penn State's good, and I think we knew that. What it tells me is Penn State's prepared to make this an offer and give him the resources that he just can't say no to. Because, guy, the last guy that I thought would leave BYU or leave his alma mater, when we were talking about Brian Key and we were talking about Jeff Brohm and Kenny Dillingham, the last one I thought would leave was Kalani Sitake.
Especially because BYU gets a pretty good support from that base. So you see them go out there and win a battle for Rider Lions. And I know there's probably some extenuating circumstances with the fit at BYU, but still to be able to like pull him away from Oregon and USC and those like real premier schools that like you think where you go get paid, like you think Oregon.
We all knew BYU ponied up for Rider Lions. There's no question about that. That's what excites me the most about a Penn State fan. Whether I like Kalani Sitake or not, Penn State seemingly is making a push that Kalani Sitake can't say no to. Like that means, hey, if he comes to Penn State, I have a feeling the resources are going to be there.
And one thing I look at with people saying stuff about the fit, I think people are look to like the Brian Kelly examples. Like, why not look to some of the other examples, like Dan Lanning in Oregon? Like, was that a good fit? He was an SEC guy.
Yeah.
Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. Like, he's an SEC. He's a West Coast guy. I think one difference between like, quote, the bad fits, like the Brian Kelly type situations, are Brian Kelly is like a scumbag. And Brian Kelly doesn't treat people right. And he was never capped in relationships. Like, when I think Kalani Sitake, I think of a guy whose players I always got the feeling like loved him and loved him at BYU and were lifers at BYU. Like you didn't see BYU, good players from BYU leaving that program. Like they do a really good job of building an elite culture, building elite relationships. And that's the fundamental difference between like when, again, he's an odd fit at Penn State for sure. Like what about Penn State screams Kalani Sitake or vice versa? But he is a relationship builder.
Dude, imagine how fired up. You know, we've seen like the passion this guy has on the sidelines. Imagine him coaching against Michigan, whiteout, Beaver Stadium. That might be too much for Kalani Sitake. I mean, that would be very, very, like, as a Big Ten guy, like, kind of fire me up for that. And let's get the cons right off the bat here. I don't know if this is like an obvious, yeah, this is an upgrade from James Franklin, right? And that's always the question I'm asking myself: are we offering a higher ceiling with Kalani Sitake? I don't know if you can say that, right? That's the one con. The other con is, I mean, he's never coached anywhere, and I mean anywhere for a year in his life more east than Utah. And so you look at what he's done and how he's built that BYU roster. It is Mountain West region. It is California region, right? It's a Utah and California. Could he come to Penn State and recruit the Midwest and recruit the DMV and recruit the Northeast? I'm not saying he can't, because Dale, I'm from Rochester, New York, and if Kalani Sitake wanted me to come play for Penn State, it'd be hard to say no. Like, yeah, he kind of fires me up. All I'm saying is it's a question.
And that's the thing. Like, you could even look. I think he's been a really good recruiter at BYU. Like, he goes out and wins his fair share of big battles. Now, again, like, the religious affiliation certainly kind of that question, and like has that helped in certain battles and like maybe push them over the. Of course, like you're right. Of course, it kind of has. But I do think of him as I mean, he puts BYU on the map. Like, they do go bang with big schools and they win their battles, and they have good, solid talent. Like, again, I don't know that you're frankly hiring him to be a recruiter, but I don't look at him as like this handicap guy, like recruiting guy who can't get it done at all.
I would agree with that. And I mean, let's get to the good too. Like, I don't mean to just act like there's only negatives. Like, the pros are 4 out of his last 6 seasons as the head guy at BYU, double-digit wins. That is, there's not a lot of coaches that can boast that track record. He is 83-44 as the sitting head coach at BYU. I think a brilliantly good staff. I don't watch every single BYU football game, but when I do, it is one of the cleanest football teams that you see. They don't make mistakes. They win some big games. If he could bring over his staff, because I'll say this, I don't really peg BYU as this quarterback developing factory, but Zach Wilson, then Jaron Hall, and then Jake Retzlaff was pretty damn good. Now they got a true freshman in Bear Bachmeier, who they're starting a Heisman campaign, which is a little too far, but Bear Bachmeier is a true freshman quarterback. We spend all our time talking about Bryce Underwood. Bear Bachmeier has been the guy as a true freshman quarterback. It can get quarterbacks going. So if he brings that staff over and has success with quarterbacks like he's done at BYU at Penn State, it's look, it is a weird one. I can see why Penn State fans would be frustrated with the process here. Like, I don't know if there was a clear plan here. We moved on from James Franklin, and I thought for damn sure they were going to get a big name, right? A really bona fide big name. They tried with Marcus Freeman and tried with Curt Cignetti. I think they tried, obviously, with Kalen DeBoer. I can see why Penn State fans are frustrated. This one would be fun, man. Now, here's the other name that
that's probably my issue is I don't know how fun it is, because I don't know, like what you said earlier, does he have that ability to like start recruiting top 5 classes and start making Penn State something that they were not under James Franklin? And that was a team that never quite had the firepower when at their best versus an Ohio State at their best or a Michigan at their best. They never quite had the firepower to be the better team on that field. And to me, Kalani Sitake, I don't know that he comes in there and recruits that way that he's going to catch up to Ryan Day. Maybe that's probably my biggest.
That's kind of why I was always on like the like Brian Hartline train. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I mean, you bring in Brian Hartline, the sky feels like the limit, right? The ceiling is unknown, potentially a very high ceiling, maybe a little bit of a lower floor. Like, Kalani Sitake is a pretty high floor guy. I don't see him coming to Penn State and going 4-8.
But
right?
James Franklin was a high. He was a high.
Agreed, and I guess that's why it was my pushback. The reason they moved on from James Franklin was, all right, we don't really care about the high floor anymore. We want access to a higher ceiling. I just don't know if Kalani Sitake gives you access to the higher ceiling. Maybe he can. If you can do double-digit wins at BYU, sure as hell can do it at Penn State too. Jeff Brohm, I know you don't like him as much, and I know the reasons why. Like, you're just not really sure what he's going to be as a recruiter at Penn State. Again, what's that ceiling going to look like? My pushback is I don't think there's many. I don't think Penn State almost ever, when they played a team like Ohio State, had the play calling quarterback advantage. Almost never, right? And that's kind of the storyline of why Penn State fell short of their potential, right? I don't think you have that problem with Jeff Brohm. You bring over Jeff Brohm, quarterback play and offensive play calling, elite. And if you
Jeff
bring
Brohm
over,
might be the only coach in college football right now who I'd say I don't necessarily think is going to have the most talented team, but his ability to coach feels almost like at a different level. His ability
yeah,
to call plays on game day
yeah,
feels like it's almost at a different level because
yep.
he has punched so far above kind of where he sits
And
talent wise. He to me is the one guy can maybe overlook the fact that I don't think he's going to be a hammer on the recruiting trail. I think he'll
yeah,
probably be solid. I like the fact that he brought Vince Marrow in from Kentucky to kind of be his guy running point
yeah.
on that stuff because Vince Marrow, he definitely can recruit and he wants to recruit. But Jeff Brohm, you're right. You mean you can't deny his football mind. It's probably about as
And
good as
and
any.
here's my question is, what would Jeff Brohm look like with the talent that James Franklin accumulated at Penn State?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if you just replaced James Franklin with Jeff Brohm on game day and gave him the same roster.
Yeah, you're
Penn State
competing
has maybe a couple Big Ten
100%.
championships, maybe one or two, right? Maybe more. And then here's the other thing is we just kind of assume Jeff Brohm is not a good recruiter, and that assumption might be right, right? He's
Louisville
been
is a
at,
better program than I feel like you give them credit for in terms of what they could potentially do. They're not Penn State. Don't get me wrong. They are not in the world of
agreed.
Penn State, but they're not horrible. Like Purdue, I don't expect anyone to recruit at Purdue. It's just not a recruitable place.
Yep.
Louisville feels like he could
It'd be
probably do a
it'd be
better job.
just a different approach because you look at Louisville and where they spend their resources, it's more in the portal than anything else. All right, Kalani Sitake, Jeff Brohm, who you take?
Jeff Brohm, I think.
I
I
think
think
so
Jeff
too.
Brohm, like again, for the reasons we kind of talked, like I suspect they'll both kind of be similar in the recruiting vein. I don't think either is necessarily elite. I do think Jeff Brohm, the fact that in a given year he can put the best offense on the field potentially, I think would be really kind of exciting for me if
Yeah.
I'm Penn State.
I think I'm with you. We'll see how it plays out. I know BYU's pushing hard to keep him around. We'll close it there. Appreciate you guys. What a freaking wild story that could unfold in Happy Valley. Appreciate you guys. We'll cover it if it happens, and you damn well better be sure that hey, we're gonna talk a lot of Penn State if Kalani Sitake ends up at Penn State. Appreciate you guys. We're gonna talk to y'all later. Peace.